Hello folks, California, the Golden State. If one didn't know the history and legacy of California, or they didn't live here, or they just weren't accustomed to the California culture, one could think that California's nickname is interpreted very figuratively, like, oh, it's the best state. Golden, if you will. But the nickname Golden State has very, very literal connotations. We are away from the California coast, quite inland to the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas, one of the largest and tallest mountain ranges here on the continental US. And it is on the slopes of these foothills that American history was transformed as we know it. This region of California is also known as Gold Country, and there's a very, very significant reason. So as we begin to spend the day in the town of Coloma, California, let's pay our respects and enjoy our day of discovery at the place where the California Gold Rush began. This is the American River. Now, before all of you proud Americans rejoice, this is probably not the best river to be named the American River. There are much more noteworthy rivers in this country. But, as you can see, rushing water. Very, very fast for a river. There's a lot of whitewater rafting opportunities here in the foothills of California, especially on this American River. The water you see comes from the snowmelt of the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra Nevadas. And once it comes down here, it flows probably a little more gently than high up. But it is pretty nice to look at. The rocks are green. I don't know why that's there. If there is one noteworthy thing the American River offers, it is that site where the California Gold Rush was spurred. In American history, it wasn't the first gold rush, this California gold rush. There were many before it, such as the famous Georgia gold rush around the Dahlonega area. But what was found in this river held the key to a historical event that changed the history of the West, the history of America. Very, very important in American frontier history. And keep in mind, it's the South Fork that's important. This is the South Fork. Eventually, it'll converge with the North Fork, which is less influential, important in American history, to make a larger American river, which will be dumped into the greater Sacramento River, which eventually leads to that San Francisco Bay that we saw with everlasting beauty yesterday in San Francisco. A Swiss immigrant to Mexico bought a huge amount of territory in Alta California. And he was hoping to strike it rich. Not with gold, but with lumber and sawmills and manufacturing. He wanted to become rich in the traditional sense, to, build up property, build up profit for his little inland empire. Not the inland empire that we were in at the beginning of our California leg, but something else. So this is what's known as Sutter's Mill, named after the guy. That's right. What was the best way in those olden days to strike it rich? Well, you had to start a colony. The colony was the best way to gain profit from whatever resources were in the area. And the resources around here were lumber, so sawmills like these might have been set up. That's exactly what John Sutter had in mind. He wanted to call his colony New Helvetia, and he had great dreams for an expansive empire. And although, you know, he was in Alta California, territory of Mexico, one can dream, right? And John Sutter employed a man by the name of James Wilson Marshall, a man from all the way over on the East Coast, to supervise the construction of such mills. So one day James Wilson Marshall was outside and he noticed along the shallows of this river shiny specks. He didn't know what they were, but he went in, put his hand in the water, and brought out couple flakes of gold. Now, his intention was to be involved in the construction of these mills, not to actively search for gold. But once he found those flakes in the palm of his hand, oh, he was definitely searching for gold now. It's generally believed to be at this exact spot, this general area, on the day of January 24th, 1848, that history was immortalized. Now the funny thing is, a week later, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed. Over 2 years of conflict between US and Mexico came to a culmination where cessions of land would be drawn. America would receive a lot of land in the West, including former Alta California. No longer under territorial acquisition, not only did Mexico just miss out on an opportunity to enrich its entire territory, among the veins soiled with gold for who knows how long, but there was a lot of it. It was now free reign. Anybody could come here to Coloma, around Sutter's Mill, and strike it rich if they got lucky. And that caused the biggest mass migration in American history. It forever changed the history of the West. And this is so cool. We are right here where American history happened. Well, in total, in the period that historians consider the California Gold Rush, around 300,000 people flocked from all over the world to California. The first few years, it was like 80,000, 90,000 people per year. Back in those times, that's an incredible number, and it just kept on coming. People would risk life and limb just for the chance to find gold. People not just from America, but thousands of Chinese laborers came all the way across the Pacific from a country that was going through one of many of its historical famines just to get here. It was better to come here to California, halfway across the world, and work in some pretty nasty conditions just for the chance of being able to send money home to their families than just to starve in the famine that was going on in China at the 1850s. Now, we have been walking around the approximate locations of the neighborhoods and streets and shops that were all littered around the mine. This town of Coloma that we're in grew at an immense scale to accommodate these new waves of prospectors. Now, although the lucrative idea of striking it rich in these gold mines attracted thousands and thousands, if you were smart, you would come here to California to sell lots of wares and tools for mining, such as shovels or pickaxes or those little pans to sift out the gold. The smart ones came here to sell, not to dig. Because let's be real here, your chances of finding gold on the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas, although it was possible, it was very, very slim, and most people didn't really eke out any profit. But that still lured people in the thousands to come all the way out here to the west. Throughout human history, gold has always been a commodity of extreme value. It doesn't break easily, it's very durable, it's very shiny, there's not much of it, it's very expensive. It's used for so many things, such as ornaments and jewelry. Royalty throughout the ages have used gold as a show of wealth. It's not going to change here in the mid-1800s in California. Gold is still just as valuable as it always has been. Well, I guess in the 20th and 21st century things have changed where oil is now the most prized possession in the whole world, I guess, the black gold. But gold is still pretty valuable here. It's still worth a lot. People back then, of course, they're going to risk it all to come here to Coloma, to Sutter's Mill, to go for the gold. All right, well, that's Coloma, California, birthplace of the California gold rush. Nothing like putting the gold in Golden State. I mean, if we're talking about California here, it was only because of the California gold rush that California became a state in 1850 as well. It would have taken much, much longer for California to be granted statehood. So Californians, you can thank your state at what it is right now, a state, for what was found along the banks of the American River. My question for you all is, would you choose to leave everything behind in pursuit of the gold here in California? Maybe nowadays we would probably say no just because of historical hindsight, but back in the day, who knows? The news would take so long to travel from source to wherever the destination was for people reading the newspapers, and the news wasn't always as accurate as it may be right now. So exaggerations could be very well abundant when you read the newspaper. There could have been a lot more gold advertised here than there actually was. But would you risk it all for gold? We have been in California for a long time, more than any other state on a trip, on a visit. Yeah, I think it's time to leave California. We have one more Californian destination, and then we move on to other states. So with that being said, it's time to say goodbye. Coming to you from the once gold-rich hills of Coloma, California, seeking gold in our future expeditions on the west. I mean gold figuratively. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location.